Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we uncover a story of power, ambition, and the rise of an empire so vast, it once claimed the sun never set on its lands. This is the story of how the British Empire ruled the world, not just through armies and ships, but through trade, diplomacy, exploitation, and sometimes pure luck. From small islands in the North Atlantic to becoming the largest empire in human history, this is the rise, rule, and legacy of the British Empire. How the British Empire ruled the world. From island to empire. How did a tiny kingdom begin its climb toward world domination? Our story begins in the 1500s. England was not rich, it was not powerful, and compared to giants like the Ottoman Empire or the mighty Mughal Empire, England was insignificant. But England had two advantages, the sea and a hunger for opportunity. With the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588, England unexpectedly found itself in control of the seas. And control of the seas was the first step to ruling the world. European ships crossing the Atlantic. England began sending explorers like John Cabot, Francis Drake, and Walter Raleigh to the New World. They weren't looking for glory. They were looking for resources, silver, land, and later, millions of new customers. By the early 1600s, England planted colonies in North America and the Caribbean, small seeds that would one day grow into a global empire. The power of trade. The empire wasn't built by armies alone, but by companies. Before Britain conquered with guns, it conquered with goods. Enter one of the most powerful corporations ever created. The East India Company. East India Company, a private company with its own army, its own navy, its own currency, and eventually its own tax system. The company began trading spices, silk, tea, and cotton. But trade turned into influence, influence turned into power, and power turned into control of entire nations. By the 1700s, this company was ruling over millions of people in India. Not a king, not a government, a corporation. This model, trade first, then rule, became a blueprint for British expansion. The age of slavery and sugar, the darker side of empire. The Caribbean became Britain's money machine. Islands like Jamaica, Barbados, and Antigua were covered in sugar plantations, and sugar meant profit. But that profit came at a horrific cost. Britain became a central player in the transatlantic slave trade, shipping millions of enslaved Africans across the Atlantic. The empire's wealth, London's banks, British ports, aristocratic families, was built partly on slavery. It is impossible to understand the power of the British Empire without acknowledging the suffering that fueled it. The Industrial Revolution, the engine that turbocharged British dominance. Then came a turning point unlike anything the world had seen. The Industrial Revolution. While other nations still relied on manual labor, Britain developed steam engines, mechanical looms, and ironworks. Factories exploded across cities like Manchester and Birmingham. Suddenly, Britain wasn't just trading goods, it was producing them faster, cheaper, and in greater quantity than anyone else. British factories needed raw materials, British merchants needed markets, and the British Navy needed bases around the world. The rule of the Navy. How the sea became Britain's greatest weapon. The secret of British global dominance can be summed up in one word: ships. By the 1800s, Britain had the most powerful navy on Earth, led by legendary commanders like Horatio Nelson. Sea power allowed Britain to control trade routes, block enemies, transport armies, and project power across continents. Wherever British ships arrived, British influence followed. From Africa to Asia to the Pacific, the Royal Navy was the backbone of empire. The crown jewel, India, the heart of the empire. If the British Empire was a body, India was the beating heart. By the mid-1800s, Britain had taken full control from the Mughal Empire, ruling over 300 million people, vast resources, strategic ports, and a massive labor force. India supplied Britain with tea, cotton, spices, opium, soldiers, and crucial tax revenue. It became so central to British power that Queen Victoria was crowned Empress of India. For decades, Britain ruled India through a system of local princes, British officials, economic control, strict laws, and a divide-and-rule strategy. But resistance grew and eventually became unstoppable. The empire at its peak, the moment Britain ruled a quarter of Earth. By the early 1900s, the British Empire reached its maximum size. It covered 25% of the world's land, nearly 500 million people, territories on every continent. The empire included Canada, India, Australia, New Zealand, huge parts of Africa, the Middle East, the Caribbean, and countless islands. The phrase, "the sun never sets on the British Empire," was not a metaphor, it was reality. But this golden age was the beginning of the end. World wars and the fall. How global conflict shattered British dominance. World War I drained Britain's wealth and manpower. World War II finished the job. The empire was too expensive, too large, too difficult to control. The world had changed. People no longer accepted being ruled by a foreign power. Independence movements swept across Asia and Africa. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah demanded freedom. By the 1960s, the empire had largely dissolved. The legacy. What remains today? The British Empire is gone, but its legacy remains everywhere. English is a global language. Parliaments around the world follow the Westminster model. Borders, laws, railways, education systems, all influenced by British rule. And organizations like the Commonwealth of Nations connect former colonies even today. Some view the empire as a force that spread trade, technology, and governance. Others see a legacy of exploitation, division, and suffering. Both views are true. Because the story of the British Empire is the story of human ambition, our ability to build and to destroy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.